Good afternoon, America. I'm Rob the accountant. I like to help people build companies while finding solutions to problems that may come your way. Have a question? Stop by robtheaccountant.com, scroll halfway down, hit the email, and I'll see what I can do. Socialism is here. Socialism is here. You know, I'm sitting here posting crap on Craigslist, throwing ads out, and I'm like, let me go check the job market, see who's out there, you know, what everyone's paying, what my competitors are paying, what's the situation. And as I'm scrolling through all these jobs, which, you know, Americans need, people do need, you know, I'm just seeing that, you know, in various tasks, people are like, you gotta put in all this effort for us, and, you know, it's a very mental, challenging job, and there's like all these conditions, really. And then you go down to the pay, and it's like 20 to 30 bucks an hour. And you're like, holy shit, I'm supposed to do all that? I'm supposed to get up every day and put in all my time and effort for that? For somebody else? For their dreams? For their success? So how does this tie into socialism? Well, I'm thinking, you know, when you make 25 bucks an hour, well, you know, that's about $1,000 a week, right? But the average apartment today in most of America is $2,000. That's if you get all the utilities, from the internet to the garbage to the water to everything in there. That's 50% of your money. Let's go back to my age, you know, back in 1999, when minimum wage was $3.25, $5.25, and you would work 40 hours a week, you know, for what, 200 bucks, and 2 or 3 paychecks covered the average apartment then at $500-600 bucks a month. And so I was thinking, man, what really destroyed all this, what really jacked everything up, was COVID. Is like how much America destroyed itself with COVID. I mean, we just allowed people to sit home and do nothing, and then we gave the people who we deemed essential, you know, they had to go to work, and we gave them extra money. We had the federal government giving them money, we had all the states giving them unemployment, and then we had their job also paying them. And suddenly we had an artificial group of folks who are all making $50,000 a year. And you know what happens is when that group, you know, the lowest economic group, and it has nothing to do with the condition of your job. You know, I've done oil changes. I was just talking to my buddy the other day, you know, back in the day before you had all these apps, you had to deliver paper out. When you were a child, you had to get up, you know, get the wheelbarrow out there and then go try to collect money from selling newspapers all week, and people didn't want to pay, and then when they actually did pay and they would give you a tip, it's like, hey, here's a quarter, son. Like, what the hell? I just spent all morning, 5 days a week delivering your paper, you give me a quarter. And so I just, like, you know, you look at it, and, you know, cars were cheaper. You know, Honda Accord was under $20,000. Now you're lucky if you get a Honda Accord, you know, under $50,000. And it just made me think that socialism is here now. This is why you have 1 in 8 people that need food stamps, because what we have in America is that there can be no divisions in the thing that matters. Meaning politically, you can be right or left, you can be pro-life, you can be non-pro-life, which I really don't like that term, non-pro-life. Just, it's not always very easy for someone to carry a baby, and that's a different discussion. But, you know, we're divided along all these other things. But when it comes to the income in our society and the taxation in our society and what we pay, we're all on the same page. We don't protest. We have no divisions among ourselves. It's like we know our place. We know where we fall in that line of the economic ladder in society. And this is why I say, you know, okay, so asking everyone to quit their job and not be a wage earner, well, that's ridiculous. But the wage earners are the largest group of taxpayers in America. So then that's why we should bring the standard deduction up to $200,000 and try this iteration of America for the next 10 to 20 years where the people have control of their money, where the people get to decide, where the people can go out and gamble it away or lose it, whatever their position may be. What we don't have is that after 10 years of you working, and you make over $50,000, presuming that, not everybody's going to, and there's people who make under that, and they're going to still pay a level of taxation. It won't be the same way, but all those people who make over $50,000, that's a lot of Americans. After 10 years, your government has clipped almost 50% of what you made. And, when I say about socialism, again, socialism isn't just like the monetary view. It's the economics of the situation, knowing your place. This is why when you go in every single city, you have suburbs in all the districts, right? The suburbs line the city, and the cities where all the poor people live. And the suburbs are various degrees of level of, I can pay more property taxes than you. I'm richer than you. My lights in my house are bigger than yours. And it's like, but you're all paying the same amount of money to send kids to school. When you look at Massachusetts as a whole, they eliminated county government and said, hey, we're going to stop all that. We're going to stop the merging of 20 little localities. I think here in New York, the one thing I will say that Andy Cuomo, when he was governor, did right was, there's over 100,000 different governing jurisdictions in New York State. Just think about that. They've all got to be funded. They've all got to be paid. There's always got to be like a mayor at large. There's got to be a supervisor. There's got to be city council. There's got to be all this process, and all those people demand money. And then the other issue is your home. There's a lot of people who bought homes 20 years ago that I know for $100,000. Maybe 120, 130. Oh, no, that's what happened. Prior to the 2008 collapse, Chase, knocking out all its competitors once again. A lot of people had homes for $100,000. But today, 20 years later, fast forward, most of those people have paid more in property taxes than they initially paid for their home. Make that make sense. Right? You bought a home for X, and over the life of your home, you will pay more in real estate property taxes than the home is worth. And so it's just, and it's like, everyone says, well, Rob, blah, 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 you sound like a boring radio. Yeah, I am a boring radio. Because in my world, things get better when the world around me has more money, right? Because then I'm an advisor of how people get to where they need to be with their money in their lives, right? And so if I get more people to believe in themselves, or I get more people to question the status quo, again, why are you sitting there as a single person, looking down on all your fellow Americans because you make $100,000, but you're the guy kicking out $30,000 a year to the federal government in your state that you live in? Well, how does that make you smart? Actually probably makes the guy who makes $50,000 and sends away $2,000 or $3,000 a year a lot smarter, right? Because when you have $100,000, you're going to have a different level of work than the person who's making $50,000. Who's really smarter at that position, right? The guy who's got to go and kill himself every day so he can see a big figure on his paycheck and lose. Oh, wait, don't forget. Yeah, you can put things in other positions to try to save it, but think about it. You have to spend your money before you make it by giving it to the banks and the investment companies in order for you to save a couple pennies on your taxes. Make that make sense. So I'm depressed for America. I'm depressed in this idea that when you really look at the books, we are 100% in a socialistic state. The government doesn't listen to its people. It spends billions of dollars on everyone else in the world while you and I get up every day, deal with the snow, deal with the heat, deal with the rain, deal with the traffic, deal with all the other assholes on the road. For what? So an allegiant group up here can have all the fun. They don't even have any fun. They sit around and kiss each other's ass anyways. And it's just like, even with the Epstein file, you got Democrats literally texting Epstein on the floor of the House. I mean, and sure, they got a million excuses. Well, if they got a million excuses, then the Republicans should have a million excuses too, right? But how about this excuse? Why is anybody in the government having conversations with that guy? Because you know what? Criminals operate among criminals. Just is what it is. You don't become a successful criminal by operating with good people. You become a great criminal by operating with other criminals. You become a great leader by operating with other great leaders. You become a great worker when you work with other people that are great. That's how greatness comes, is because there's an evolution. And the evolution is you learn going in how to be better with the rest. And it's just depressing sometimes. It's literally depressing because the world that we live in is so beautiful. The freedoms that we have here in America are so beautiful. But we allow such a small group of people to command all the structures, all the rules, and they have no consideration to the effort you and I put in. I don't know how we change this thing, because going forward, everybody wants, and people need who don't want. There's definitely more need than people who want. I don't think anybody really wants to have to go get food stamps. I think they have a need to feed their family, and they go apply for food stamps. Sure, there's always going to be that asshole out there that, hey, Minnesota, sorry, Tampon Tim. Again, Tampon Tim. Why do we call Tampon Tim Tampon Tim? Why do we call the Minnesota governor Tampon Tim? We call Minnesota Tampon Tim because he put tampons in the boys' bathroom. No, look, you could go to all your right-wing stories, left-wing stories, whatever. This constant idea that you got to please everyone. You can't please everybody in life. There's going to be people who are going to be displeased no matter what you try to do to please others. So just this whole idea of spending money to put tampons in boys' bathrooms is just has nothing to do with the condition of whatever they're talking about. It just, from a policy position, to spend money to do that, to outfit out of all the other things that we need to spend money on in school. That's why he's called Tampon Tim. And now, sadly in Minnesota, you're going to have a few bad actors define foreign or American aid to selected groups of people, which, again, I think I'm okay with all that stuff going away. It just doesn't seem like anybody's really put any real money to black. Black people who suffered the most in this country have received not $1 of reparations or anything. So how do we have all these Somalians getting money that they're sending outside the country? We have like a demographic of give me money for every egreged group in America, but the one group that deserves the money out of everyone. But I don't give a crap. None of you were brought over I wasn't brought over, but none of you were brought over on a boat, sold as slaves by your own people. So, if you're going to give money out for every other cause, why don't we start there? Why don't we start with Black Wall Street in Arizona? That a lady, 111 years old, watched her family's property and rights completely trampled on by the federal and state government in this quagmire of a situation that she dies at 111 years old. And she doesn't receive any justice. She doesn't receive one fucking dollar of compensation. Think about that. There's still another one out that's 110, and she hasn't. Think about that. Their families were ripped out of their homes. Their communities were destroyed, not because they did anything, because sadly white people were jealous of them. And 100 years later, there hasn't been one form of compensation by the state or the federal government to address that, while billions have gone to every other selective group in the United States of America. Again, I'm depressed for America. I'm not so depressed for myself. I'm just depressed for America because, we keep rewarding all the things and all the people that really have no basis here. And I don't mean to be a dick about that. When you are born here and you are raised here, you grow up with a certain ideology of where your boundaries and your limits and your opportunities and the sky, there's no limit for you. I know women always say there's a glass ceiling. There's no glass ceiling for anybody. Oprah, okay? I mean, are you going to compare Oprah to every guy? Well, that's just ridiculous. But Oprah, lots of women have broken a lot of glass ceilings. So, in America, you're given the belief that anything is possible. And then we seem to be importing a lot of people. And it's not about their religion at all. In fact, I really want to say it has nothing to do with their religion. I have many Muslim friends, all right, who are Muslim Americans. Hello. And it's just, you take someone from a third world country who's never, his whole or her whole life growing up is a bargaining or a meant to stay survival. Look at George Santos. Let's take George Santos, okay? George Santos from Brazil. There was no reason for him to leave Brazil. He lied on his application. Him and his mother concocted a plan. It worked great, by the way. He got himself a Congress seat. He got himself convicted. He got himself a pardon. And he has more rights on the fucking floor of the House of Representatives than any other American who's not a member of Congress. And he's fucking from Brazil. He's not even a fucking born American. Why does that make sense? You think you're going to Russia and jumping in their parliament? You think if you're not a Jewish person, you're going to go serve in the cassette in Israel? No. In Germany? In England? The House of Commons? Where? In China? Where in the rest of the world can you serve as a functioning member of their political elite as a non-citizen? No, not as a non-citizen. I apologize. You're a citizen, but as a non-naturalized, non-born citizen, someone who did not born in that country. Your existence was in another country, but you come to this country, and now you have political fame and fortune with an ideology that is inconsistent with the rest of us. And yes, it is inconsistent. I don't give a crap. It is inconsistent because how we live is different than the rest of the world. And so that's why I keep saying socialism is here. Our government has forgotten about the people it represents. And I just think the next go around for president, we really need to start having the discussion. We need to really start talking about issues that matter to you and me. All this hate between the two sides is just silly. All it keeps doing is getting us crazier and crazier people on the fringe side of the aisle. So you want to replace Schumer with what? AOC? How does that help you? When's the last bill AOC put in front of Congress that actually improved people in her district's lives? I'd just like to know. Because Hillary Clinton was a senator for the state. And I think she co-sponsored some 120 bills. And 2 made it through. And none of them were for you. None of them were for you. None of them were for me. None of them changed the dynamics. All it did was keep us in our place. It kept us knowing who we are and where we are. And unless you have some real condition that can break that cycle, there's really no hope. Because in order for you to get to the next level, you can't give up what you got, and you got to give more to get there. So you got to spend double more to even achieve a little bit more. And that is what really socialism is. That's like knowing your place. They say, in Russia, they told you you're going to be a dentist. No, that's not how that worked. They have a test. All these tests. And they evaluate you. And the smart ones they put over here, and the ones here, and the labor class, and the ones that can go fight on the Ukrainian front and just die are over there. And that's where we're getting. We're getting there. California is one of the greatest states in the whole world. And yet its rich Democratic donor base has more fences and gates than any southern state in the United States of America. I'm Rob. I hope you guys have a great day. Go have a good weekend. There's snow here where I'm at. I'm just hoping Bristol Mountain is producing some snow so I can go skiing. But wherever you are, start looking around. Start trying to break the everyday of your life. Start trying to commingle with other people and ideas that can help you build something. You know? On the final point I laugh about is like all the billionaires and their stupid spaceships, right? All of them, they have their stupid spaceships. Maybe if you were all smart billionaires, you would get together and build one really cool Star Trek enterprise, right? You take all your money collectively and you build the enterprise for yourself. And you're telling me Bezos, Musk's, and who are the Virgin guy, those 3 or 4 guys that got their spaceships, well, you guys can't share the Enterprise? Really? You're going to ride on the Enterprise 365 days a year? I'm just saying, but that's not what happened. What happened is each one of you, because you're so arrogant in your own brain, built your own spaceship. That's all they did. Each one of them built their own spaceship, and then they had to go find all their rich people that they could ferry out and get $1 million so you can go blast off in space. I don't know. That's what some people like to do, while the rest of us sit down here and slave away. So I just think it's time. I just think it's time for the taxation, and it's time for Rob to stop being depressed for America. It's time for me to stop screaming about all this shit. But it's going to keep going on because people are tired. And I worry that the next generation, they just accept, things as is. And then you got the old boomers who tell them that what is not is. And I think both sides, young and old, coming to the table, can compare the similarities of their life in America and see where the commonality of what they lose overrides all of their social concerns going forward. We really should be putting America first in everything. America's already great. It was always great. It was great even in times when it was by others perceived not to be great. Because in America is an idea. See, it's an idea that all men are created equal and all men are born free and bestowed these rights by some creator. I'm Rob. You guys have a good day. Bye for now.